صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, we ask Allah to send His greatest peace and blessings upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. We praise Allah for all the blessings He has given us, and the greatest blessing being that He allowed us to be of the ones who remain steadfast, dedicated, and loyal on the path of our Master after the Prophet, the Commander of the Faithful, the Prince of the Believers, the Protector of the Prophet and his message, Al-Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. We praise Allah for this blessing and every blessing, for without Allah we would have nothing. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers, my dear sisters, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight, the intention is to speak about success and how it brings us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Within that theme, inshallah, we're going to continue on a few principles and a few values that we covered in the past 2 nights. So some of you may be calling this part 3. But inshallah, we're going to be driving and building on the foundations that we have been developing over the past several nights, not just the past couple nights, inshallah. And an essential question on success and how it's bringing us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not, a question underneath that theme that I want us to start off with and I want us to be thinking throughout tonight is, what is going to outlive me? What will outlive me? When I'm gone, when my life is over, what remains? We talked about marriage, we talked about family, we talked about the homes that we're building. For those of us who are unmarried and looking towards marriage, inshallah, and hopefully taking some of these principles and these ideas from the Quran and from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam to formulate what the vision for the future would look like. For those of us who are married and building our families currently, hopefully making adjustments that we need to make, again, based on the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. That's something that is keen for us to always be, or is key for us to always be keen on making adjustments. It's okay to make mistakes so long as you're learning from those mistakes and you're building from them. You can be in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, your 70s. No matter how old you are, the idea of guidance is that you can be better. You can make adjustments. It's never too late until you pass. It's never too late until you stop breathing. But the point and the objective for us is so long as we're breathing, so long as we have life, we will continue to grow, we will continue to make adjustments. Last night, we asked, what was I created to do? And we said, to carry the trust, to uphold the covenant, to refine our ego, to humble ourselves. We answered that question, and we talked about specific scenarios that when we're frustrated, what are we created to do? When we're annoyed, what were we created to do? In the imperfect circumstances, what were we created to do? In upholding the covenant and refining the ego, in taking and carrying the trust, al-amana, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us, and we took something that the earth and the heavens and the mountains refused, were afraid of, but the human being took it. We took it. With this covenant, it doesn't stop at just 2 people or one person. It continues. Each and every one of us is going to be leaving behind a legacy. Each and every single one of us has the potential to leave behind a lineage. So it extends further into children, into generations, into our families, into history. We sometimes refer to our grandfathers and our ancestors. One day, you and I will be the grandfathers, the grandmothers, the ancestors that people refer to. So the real question for us here today, tonight, and now is, what will outlive me? And am I thinking about that, and am I planning for it? One day, each and every one of us, our name will be spoken in a room that we are not in. And when it's spoken, what will be said? And how will it be said? What will they say about us? Our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, our lineage. What will they say about us? Our relatives, what will they say about us? Our community, what will they say about us 100 years from now? What will that be? That's what we want to talk about here tonight, inshaAllah. Al-Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam teaches me to reflect on and think about, am I actually thinking and planning beyond my own lifetime? In Dua Makarim al-Akhlaq, Al-Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, we mentioned one part that he includes, where he says, "Oh Allah, establish me among my family, my children, my kin, and my neighbors in a way that beautifies my rank." Then the Imam says, وَأَحْسِنَا خِلَافَتَكَ عَلَيَّ فِي مَا يُغِيبُ عَنِّي مِنْ أَهْلِي وَوُلْدِي. مِنْ أَهْلِي وَوُلْدِي. O Allah, and act kindly in my stead regarding my family and my children who remain behind me. What is the Imam showing us here? In Dua Makarim al-Akhlaq, our best self, we're trying to design that here in Shahr Ramadan. We're trying to build towards that in Shahr Ramadan. The Imam is teaching us that yes, beyond my own lifetime, asking Allah, he's teaching us to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make sure that when I'm not here anymore, protect what I've left behind. Protect what I built. Take care of my family. Make sure, Ya Allah, those who remain behind me act kindly in my stead. This is something that if you want to be looking at it as, is Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam teaching us generational vision? Absolutely. You see it here. This is a visionary dua that the Imam is not only teaching us to think about our current situation or merely repenting from previous sins and deeds, but he's thinking into the future, not just of my future, but the future that lies ahead when I'm no longer here. Look at how the Imam is shaping our mind to be thinking about beyond my presence. Yani when I'm in my grave, act kindly in my stead with regards to the family and the children that I leave behind. Now let's be honest with ourselves. Do we think like that? You don't need to raise your hand. If you think like that, well and good. Think more like that. If you don't think like that yet, it's okay. Tonight, begin to think like that. Tonight, have this mental exercise with yourself. Yes, I want to think about the children that are yet to be born from my lineage. To the young men and women in the audience, how do you think you and I are going to build strong families for a strong community? It's when we plan for them before they come into existence. Think about your son. My sisters, think about your son who's yet to be born. My brothers, think about your daughter who's yet to be born. And start praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with that mindset that I'm building for the family that Allah inshaAllah will bless me with. And when it comes to my children, when it comes to a lineage, many of us think that we just ask for a family, we ask for children, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the rizq, the sustenance of being provided children and lineage. And that's probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest form of sustenance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us to be even more specific when it comes to children. Allah tells us in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Furqan, chapter 25, verse 74. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is a verse in the Holy Quran, but it's also a dua, a supplication to Allah. رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, O Lord, O my Lord, our Lord, grant us from our spouses and our offspring comfort to our eyes and make us leaders over the righteous or for the righteous. Notice here, what is the Imam saying? The Imam is asking, right here, he's not just asking for a spouse. Or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us here in the surah, in this verse, not to just ask for a spouse or not to just ask for offspring for children. But here, we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He's teaching us to ask, from our spouse, from our children, comfort to our eyes. And not just comfort here. So there's comfort. But then also, Allah is teaching us the connection here to leadership and faith. A righteous continuity that comes through the building of family. And this is key. When we have children, it's not enough for us to bring children into being. We become mothers, we become fathers, we have children, and then we did it. That's it. No. It comes into how are you connecting this child to become righteous, and what continuity comes from that righteousness that you have with this child, with this family that you're building. Today, my dear brothers and sisters, too often we see, and again, this isn't as a judgment to anybody who is doing this, but as a point of reflection, when we go on social media and we see the flaunting of kids, the flaunting of what beautiful things families have, with the pictures and the videos and the vacations, God bless you. You may be sharing with the most beautiful of intentions what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you and given you in your life. May Allah give you more. But take this as a point of reflection. When we're sharing everything that our family has, we need to realize that our children, our spouses, our husbands, our wives are not accessories to a lifestyle that we want to promote as content on social media. And yes, a picture, a video, a story, a reel, it has certain ramifications and implications. The privacy that you hold and the honor that you give your family is reflected in the way you behave on social media. Social media, my dear brothers and sisters, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, all of the different platforms, these are virtual billboards. These are virtual billboards that we're putting on display for thousands, hundreds of thousands, and perhaps millions of people seeing them. So when I'm using my children, using my family as a lifestyle accessory, I need to revisit my intention and seeing how am I actually looking at my child. When my child is getting dressed up in the morning, why am I dressing them up this particular way? When we're taking pictures of our family, why are we taking pictures in this particular way, and who are we sharing them with? Now, this may not be popular, especially in this time where by default, we're just meant to share, meant to put it on Snapchat, meant to put it on Instagram, meant to put it on TikTok, meant to make content and just push out. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the holy month of Ramadan and throughout the year, He gives us opportunities to reflect, like a night like this, reflecting on what am I leaving behind? Am I spending too much time on getting the perfect picture with my kids instead of truly enjoying the moment with my children? Giving them my time, giving them my heart, giving them my presence, and we'll get to that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on this idea of what do we inherit? We're talking about this relationship that we have with our children, with our spouses, with our families. There's also this idea of just like how I was alluding to earlier, we're going to leave behind, and we will one day become ancestors to people that come into existence. We're going to be grandfathers, grandmothers, etc., etc. We also inherited from those who came before us. We came from somewhere. Each and every one of us has a lineage. So ask yourselves here tonight, what did I inherit? Identify it, think about it, and what am I passing on? Because you can't think about what you're passing on without first thinking about what did I get from those before me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah At-Tur, chapter 52, verse 21. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَاتَّبَعَتْهُمْ ذُرِّيَّتُهُمْ بِإِيمَانٍ أَلْحَقْنَا بِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتُهُمْ. Allah tells us, and those who believed and whose descendants followed them in faith, we will join their descendants with them. We will join their descendants with them. This is key because we realize that our faith doesn't come out of thin air. Some people, when they come to faith, they come to religiosity, they come to more religious practice, they think nobody before them had anything to do with it. Even if their parents or their grandparents were not religious people. I tell you, each and every one of us, we are impacted. We inherit certain values, certain features, certain temperaments, good and bad, from those before us. Now, we're not going to blame everything on those before us or give full credit to those before us. You have free will and you have exercise. You have the exercise of that freedom that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted you with. But there are certain things that are inherited and then certain things that will travel forward. Your faith has the potential to travel forward, and your weaknesses also have the potential of traveling forward. You will not inherit the sins of your father. However, there's certain weaknesses that can be passed down. But you are responsible for how you interact with them. And likewise, you can inherit to your children and grandchildren certain strengths or certain weaknesses. You can be someone who inherited sacrifice. You may come from a lineage of people that, mashallah, they're known in their history to be ones who gave sacrifice. And this is, by the way, one of the most important things for us, all of us, especially us as we look at our core identity as Shia Muslims. But for any people that want to see the best of themselves, they have to look into their history, they have to look into their heritage. You may be one who has inherited sacrifice. You may be one who has inherited dua, a culture, a lifestyle of supplicating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You may have inherited struggle and struggling in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That didn't come out of thin air. Someone prayed for you. Someone prayed for you before you were born. Someone put that into existence and connected you before you were born when it came to these specific ad'iyah. What did we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for? And what have we been saying in the past few minutes? We're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, even for those of us who what? Notice these verses in the Quran and these supplications, there's no prerequisite in them that you must be married and have children to make this dua. No. Is there an age requirement when it comes to reading the Quran and these verses from the Quran? Before you read, you must be of this age, be married and have children? La. Dua makarim al-Akhlaq, the Imam is talking about his children and his family that he leaves behind. He's teaching us how to supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The young men and women in the audience, 16, 17, 18, you don't have kids, you're not married, but you're being taught this is how you talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you should. You're putting it into existence. Someone prayed for you before you were born. Someone endured so that you could stand and be here today. I always like to share the example, the story of my grandfather, rahmatullah alayh, who came to this country with the intention of coming to a specific community, and that community was Dearborn, Michigan. When I asked my grandmother, Allah yatawwal bi'umrah, when I asked her, Tata, why did Juddu come to Dearborn, Michigan specifically? And I remember asking her one really cold winter day. I think we had like 10 inches of snow that day, and I was visiting my grandma. And I was looking outside, and I was like, Yani Juddu, Allah yarhamu, he couldn't have went to Florida. He couldn't have gone somewhere else. Yani illama Detroit, illama Michigan. And I asked my grandmother, Tata, why did Juddu make this decision here? She said, he was considering another community. And I got excited. I thought it was just khalas, from Lebanon to Michigan. That's it. Lebanon, Detroit. Lebanon, Dearborn. That's it. And I got excited. I thought, oh, where? Were they considering California? Were they considering Arizona? Were they considering Florida? No, he was considering New York. Atas. They get the same amount of snow. So I was like, okay, but why did they choose New York? Or why didn't they choose New York? Why did they choose Dearborn? Why did Juddu Allah yarhamu choose Dearborn? And she said at that time, he heard of a community that was being built around a masjid, the Islamic Center of America at that time, which is now Markaz Zahra. At that time, the mosque on Joy Road. Who knows the mosque on Joy Road? Right? That's history. That's part of our identity as a community. With a sheikh that was building a community, his name was Sheikh Jawad Shirri, rahmatullah alayh. And though my grandfather was not the most religious man, he wanted to make sure that his children, for the time that he thought he would be here, because his intention was to come, escape the civil war in Lebanon, like many families did in the 70s, and then go back when things would get better. And the time that they would spend here, he thought, let me make sure that my kids, at least they know their faith, their identity, that they're Shia Muslims, that they're going to be able to go to prayer, that they're going to hear Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, okay? Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Subhanallah, my grandfather passed away, and this copy of the Holy Quran that I have, it's a very special copy for me because this was from his passing, and it has in here a reminder to recite Surah Al-Fatiha for him. He passed away in 2003, okay, so over 20 years ago. And I always remember when it came to his decision, particularly to come here, I remember the prayer that I'm sure he made when it came to his lineage, because that intention he had to come to this masjid in Dearborn, Michigan, is the place where my kids go to school. My children, his great-grandchildren, whom he's never met. I was only 13 when he passed. I was still in middle school. He never met my grandchildren. But his prayer, his intention had an impact on him. I'm thankful, I'm grateful. My children are indebted towards that decision that he made. Do you see the connection? You and I have the potential to make these kinds of decisions on a daily basis. Yani him in his grave, he is benefiting from when my daughter Zahra today, she's telling me, Baba, I'm doing tasbih on my masbaha. I'm like, what tasbih are you at? She's like, I've been doing it since the beginning of Shahr Ramadan. I'm doing about 9,000 right now. I'm like, Baba, mashallah, 9,000? I'm like, how were you averaging a day? She's like, I'm trying to do about 1,000 a day. And she's using her little clicker. Hajj Rima, I actually remembered you with that clicker. She's using that clicker. And I was saying, subhanallah. And I was on my way taking them to school. And I remembered my grandfather. This is a very small example. And I'm sure many people in the audience have other examples of how their ancestors have had an impact on them. You and I need to be thinking the same way. What are we passing on? Are we passing on strength? Or are we passing on confusion? Are we passing on clarity? Or are we passing on instability? Are we passing on peace? Or are we passing on trauma? Are we passing on goodness and virtue? Or are we passing on things that we're ashamed of? The decision is ours. Here's a question for all of us here today, my dear brothers and sisters. And I see more parents in the audience today. God bless you all, and God bless your children. Am I actively forming and raising my children, Or am I letting the world do it for me? Am I actively forming and raising my children? Or am I letting the world do it for me? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Luqman, in chapter 31, verse 13, when Luqman is speaking to his son, Ya bunay, la tushrik billah. I'm just going to stop right there. Luqman is telling his son, he's instructing him, he's talking to him, he's advising him, he's sharing something so fundamental to him, telling him, my son, do not associate anything with God. Don't associate anything with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for associating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a grave sin. By the way, this isn't just saying, we're not talking about paganism, we're not talking about polytheism. He's saying, do not associate anything with Allah. Make Allah, you worship only Him. You don't worship money. You don't worship status. You don't worship influence. You don't worship friends. You don't worship any of that. You worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many of us are actually having conversations with our kids? I'm talking about conversations. Maw'idha. It's not, listen, here, isma, yelling at him all the time, yelling at her all the time. Just having a conversation. And some of you may be thinking, oh, my dad didn't do that, my mom didn't do that. Then you do that. You're 18, you're 19, you're 20 years old, you're in college. Start thinking about, thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for whatever good came from your parents. Ask Allah for forgiveness for anything that they had of shortcoming. But then whatever you think, you feel like, yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, then you become the person in the chain of your generations, in the link of your lineage, you become the person who makes that positive change. You take the good, you let go of the bad. You allow your children, who have yet to come into existence, to inherit the things that you want them to inherit. You become conscientious of that. That's what you focus on. Luqman, he spoke, he instructed, he guided, he corrected, he provided, he helped, he cared. Now, just as a side note, a lot of times we get frustrated. Every other day, by the way, I have somebody call me or ask me, Hajj, I have this issue with my dad, with my mom. I don't know how to talk to them. They don't know how to talk to me. It's frustrating. Listen, frustration with your parents, it's something that's going to happen. What I always emphasize on, especially when it gets really bad, and some of you may not like this, but I always say, listen, at the end of the day, if this was your final day with your father, with your mother, how much would you be holding on to every single word? It's okay. Look at the bigger picture. Now, this is not to discount any other frustration, any other issues, any other challenges. Sometimes you need to go very deep into it. But just as a thought, in all of the reflections and all the frustrations that we have with family, what if this is your last day with family? Are you going to nitpick on the things that we've been nitpicking on? No, you're going to look at the bigger picture. This is the last hour you have, last opportunity. La samahallah, la samahallah. You leave the house, you storm out of the house. And you left on a very, very tense note. You may have exchanged disrespectful words. You said things that you know later on you'll regret. What if that's the last time that you see your mother? The last time you see your father? The last time you see your brother or your sister? God forbid. Yeah, it puts things into perspective. Keep that in mind, because that's the energy that you'll carry on with your kids, with your family. I want to share, especially for the parents in the room, I want to share a beautiful hadith that's narrated in a chain that goes back to Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Sheikh Saduq, rahmatullah alayhi, he has this in his book, Man la yahdaruhu al-faqih, one of the four primary sources of hadith that we have as Shia. In this hadith, and just for the sake of time, I'll jump into the English translation of it. Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, love the children, love your children, and have mercy on them. When you promise them something, fulfill it for them. When you promise your kids something, fulfill it for them, for they only perceive that you are the one who provides for them. Allahu Akbar. يعني شو, I'm gonna say this, يعني بالمشبرح as we say, very bluntly, don't tell your kids inshallah if you don't mean it. هيدي مع كلمة inshallah إلى قيمة. It has a big value, has a very important value. Don't say God willing if you don't have the full intention behind it. Inshallah, Baba, inshallah. No, let's change that. Let's change that tonight. For us, let's not make it a habit where we promise our kids or lead our kids on to thinking something, lead our families on to thinking something, that it's going to happen when it's not. You have no intention of making it happen. When we say inshallah or we make a promise, and anytime we make a promise, it should be, yes, inshallah. When you're making a promise, it should be connected to, yes, I want to make this happen. I'm going to make this happen by the will of Allah, inshallah. That's the kind of psychology that we should have when it comes to promising our kids, because our kids are looking towards us. If you break a promise, that has an impact later on for them. And by the way, when we're saying here that you're the one providing for your kids, it's not just providing food, it's not just providing shelter, it's providing truth, it's providing time, it's providing reliability. You are their sustenance, you are their source of sustenance, of faith, of truth, of reliability, of security. We need to make sure that we build that into our homes, regardless of what we experienced as children. Now, someone will, oh, you're discounting trauma, you're discounting people's experiences, No, I'm not. But I'm also believing in our potential as human beings to choose perseverance over struggle, over trauma, and make a choice. You can't just always blame the past. You can't just always blame the things that were done to you. Bilakis, our faith teaches us, yes, you learn from what happened before and you build from it. You build forward. You don't build backwards. Just because you had a certain upbringing doesn't mean that you're going to pass that on to your kids. You take the good that your parents gave you and you ask Allah for forgiveness for your parents on the things that they didn't do so well. Yes, our fathers, our mothers are not perfect. Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam still describes their rights in Risalatul Huquq, in the treatise on rights. For your father, the Imam says, know that he is the root of God's blessing upon you. That's his right. If you see anything in yourself that you like, know that he is the root of Allah's blessing upon you, and without him you would not be. Now some people want to make it be as, oh no, this is only applying to the father if he is a mu'min, if he is a perfect father, if he's, la, literally without him you wouldn't be. He is imperfect. Pray for him. Ask Allah to forgive him. You wouldn't be here without him. خلص نقطع السطر. نحن, by the way, we want to always rationalize and don't complicate it. Use this as what? Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always pointing to us towards what? Rahmah, mercy, forgiveness, build. Yes, there were mistakes. Now build from it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my dear brothers and sisters, and I'll wrap up here. He mentioned to us a verse, which I mentioned yesterday, but I wanted to tie back in today again and make sure that we drive it home. In Surah Al-Tahrim, verse 6, قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا. Protect, safeguard yourselves and your families from a fire. The potential, it's funny, I was talking to my kids about this. There was a lot of things we talk about on the way to school, mind you. My son Ali was talking about, Baba, is it possible for us to go to hell? My son Ali is 5. Is it possible for us to go to hell? Is there a possibility? To the Baba, there's a possibility. Are we going to go to hell? I tell him, inshallah, no, Baba. This one, definitely, inshallah. Inshallah, no. And then we were talking about it, and I remembered this verse. Safeguard, protect yourselves and your families from a fire. It is a possibility. So what are you going to do to protect your family and yourself from that possibility of the displeasure of Allah, the wrath of Allah, which is fire? By the way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not waiting to throw people into hellfire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, He's designed the universe in a way for you to access His mercy any which way you turn. This whole life is opportunities of going to mercy. Yani the person who really messed up, the person who wasn't able to take the advantage of the opportunity of seeking the forgiveness and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's the person who's going to get thrown into hellfire. Because if you look at just from the idea of the possibilities, every prayer, every day, every month, you have thousands, if not millions of opportunities to repent and have a clean slate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how are we not going to get into heaven? You know how? When we neglect all of this. And when we fall into, which inshallah I'm going to tie back in and hopefully drive it home tomorrow, when we fall into that sin that destroyed even one of the best worshippers who worshipped Allah for thousands of years, Iblis, when he said, أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْهِ. And every other human being and every other jinn who took the tradition of Iblis and comparing themselves to someone else and saying, I am better, and giving themselves credit. And this is something that I remind myself before I remind any of you, my dear brothers and sisters. All credit is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything that we have of goodness, of virtue that we can share with the world, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. He's the one who gives. Don't be like Qarun, who we mentioned the other night. Yeah, I got all of this because of me, because of my intelligence, my smartness, what I did. I made the moves, I made it happen. No. And please, don't let your children inherit that kind of vice. If you feel in yourself a little bit of arrogance, a little bit of pride, some misplaced pride, I want you to burn it as quickly as you can so that your children don't inherit it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my dear brothers and sisters, gives us all of these opportunities. So we ask ourselves, and we'll end here, am I confusing what is expected of me on a daily basis in the hustle and bustle of life, of providing and working and careers and building, with this and that? Am I confusing that with the presence that I should be having, that Ahlul Bayt point me to, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points me to? I want you to imagine this elderly father. There's an elderly father who was asked the question, what was your greatest mistake? And this is now, he is not just an elderly father, he's a grandfather. What was your greatest mistake? He didn't say money. He didn't say business, whether it was a business that he went to or a business that he missed the opportunity for. He said, I was present in my home, I was present in my house, but I was not present with them. Many of us, we live together, but we don't actually live together. He built security, he provided, he gave. But children and our families don't remember just the provision. They don't just remember the shelter. What they remember is the tone of our voice. They remembered when we called their name. Was it calling their name with love, or was it calling their name that honestly kind of made them scared? They remember how safe they felt. They remember how cared they felt. Listen, there's enough challenges in the world today. There's enough challenges on the outside. Nahna biyutna, our homes, if we want our mosques and our centers to be places of community, our home needs to start off with that. You need to have your home be the first place of safety for your children, for your family, for your husband, for your wife. If you're wondering why your kids or your spouse isn't spending enough time at home, think to yourself what we're doing collectively to make an atmosphere of love, care, and safety inside the home. Do you want to be home? Now, some people may not even be asking themselves that. They just realize, I'm always out of the house. Why? What are we building towards that? When my name is spoken in the future, what will it mean? To think to yourself your name. Ali, Zahra, Muhammad, Fatima. Your name is spoken into the future. What is that going to mean for you? One day, you're going to become someone's ancestor. We said that. What does that actually look like? Your great-grandchildren, like I mentioned, my children, my grandfather's great-grandchildren, they never met him. Your great-grandchildren are probably not going to meet you, but they will probably inherit your discipline. When you look and you see people, and some of you may have experienced this, someone may look at you and say, I see your grandfather in you. I see your great-grandfather in you. You may not even met them. You don't remember that in them. You're going to inherit some of those things. And your children and your great-grandchildren will inherit that from you. But ask yourself, what will they inherit from you? Are they going to inherit your discipline, or are they going to inherit your dysfunction? يعني نحن when we're changing, لما عم نتوب, when we're repenting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, know that this has an implication on those who are going to come after you. Are they going to inherit your discipline, something that you worked hard towards? Or are they going to inherit your dysfunction? Are they going to inherit your strength or your insecurity? Are they going to inherit your faith, your iman in Muhammad wa al-Muhammad? Are they going to inherit confusion and possibly private hypocrisy? What are they going to inherit? Because you're not just living your life. You're writing someone else's starting point. Again, each person has free will, but you are also inheriting for them certain things, tools that they're going to, tendencies, temperaments that they're going to start off with. The question should not be, my brother, my sister, the question should not be, at the end of life, did I live comfortably? أنا كنت مرتاح? That I live comfortably? Instead, it should be, did I strengthen the chain? Did I strengthen my lineage? Because when you stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your resume, your accomplishments, your careers, your businesses, all of that, they're not going to follow you. Your lineage will. What will outlive you? Build that. Think about that. Contemplate on that. Reflect on that. Every khatmat Quran that you do, every prayer that you have, every program that you attend, and every reflection, think about what you're building into yourself. You're also building into the generations to come. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen our generations to come by strengthening us. Allow us to seek this closeness to you, Ya Allah, by Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. هذا والحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة والتسليم على نبينا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.